Maybe not. We'll see. And we are live. Good evening, Facebook. My name is Chuck Fagan, and this is a special presentation of the Better Savannah Facebook page. Better Savannah is the Chatham County area's leading independent expenditure committee focused on local progressive policy outcomes. This evening, we'll be speaking with the fifth and final candidate for the open House Democratic primary for House District 163 here in Savannah. That's the district being vacated by retiring Representative J. Craig Gordon. We've spoken to everybody on wide-ranging of issues, from the ports to poverty to job creation. We're gonna speak shortly with Mr. Matthew Swanson. Matthew, tell us a little bit about you. Tell the viewers and the audience here why you're running for state representative this year in this crowded field. Tell us about yourself.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Matthew Swanson, of course, and I am running for State Representative District 163. I'm actually a resident of this district, a native of the district, born and raised right here. We own a business here in the district by the name of Donna's Delicious Delights. And my family is from this area, from Savannah. I'm actually a graduate of H.V. Jenkins High School, as well as Ogeechee Technical College of Mortuary Science. I've also obtained a BS degree in accounting from Savannah State University here in Savannah. I've sat on a few boards, not many, because most of my life has been school. And so working in my family business, I had to work my way through school, and my mom, she needed my help. So I had to step up and work in the family business. So I would go to school at night and work all day. So, but I felt that this race was very important. I felt that it was very important simply because we had great representation in the district, but I felt like it was time for me to step up and run and help this district move forward. A lot of this district is, just speaking with a lot of people in the district, they were saying that, this district needed someone who would actually come back into the district and find out what the issues were and move forward. And so I felt, hey, I am the guy for that. I'm the guy that actually wants to move the district forward with everyone included. Making sure that everyone had an opinion in what happens in the legislation. So.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I want to jump right into some questions with you here. The recent city elections were historic as voters didn't return any incumbents except for the unopposed Dr. Shabazz in the 5th District. What's your takeaway from that dramatic outcome? What do you think the state of politics is here in the Free State of Chatham?
Well, I felt life is full of uncertainties. I felt the residents were tired of not being included in deals that were taking place in our great city. So they felt like they felt like it was time for change. So I felt like they all wanted change. And so they did what they had to do. They voted for change and voted to actually move the city forward together. So.
Almost every council member last year campaigned on bringing about term limits to city governments and for city aldermen. Some of the county commission candidates we've spoken with this year have also indicated they're willing to do the same for the county government. Since the city's already adopted it on their legislative agenda, if you win your election, will you file a bill on the home rule schedule to update the charter of the city of Savannah for term limits for the aldermen?
Well, I can't say that I would file a bill at this point. I'm new, but I feel that it takes a term to get a full understanding of true leadership in this capacity. With that being said, our leaders, we're voted to make a change. If there's a change that's needed to take place, I feel that the constituents would make that change by voting them out and voting a new candidate in. So.
Gotcha. Okay, let's talk about the most pressing issue in the state of Georgia for the Democratic Party. That's probably Medicaid expansion. The COVID-19 pandemic is disproportionately affecting districts like ours here in 163. Black Georgians are more likely to contract or pass away from this virus, and they're also facing the majority of layoffs and furloughs in industries like hospitality and tourism that are so reliant in our district. How are you going to protect vulnerable Savannians, vulnerable residents from the cuts that are being proposed in healthcare during this pandemic?
Well, I feel that we should work with other legislators, leaders to actually across the aisle. I don't believe in just one side of the aisle. I believe in working across the aisle to actually make sure that our citizens are number one. When it comes to cuts in the healthcare, I am not for it at all. If we could cut something somewhere else, I feel that that would be great. But at this point, healthcare is most important. With COVID-19 and so many people checking into hospitals all over the country right now, and so many people passing away, healthcare is not the thing to cut. And as you see, there are so many other items like education at this point. Students are not able to go to school. They're having to do school online. So at this point, if we were to cut anything from the budget at this point, not for future, but at this point, I would not cut healthcare. Healthcare is number one, and I really feel that we need more healthcare for seniors and anyone else in the district at this point.
Thank you. I really want to press on this specific issue of the Medicaid expansion package from the Affordable Care Act. Georgia is one of a dozen states that has failed to expand Medicaid. You know, we're leaving billions of dollars of our own money on the table. You mentioned a very good point of we're going to have to work with the other side. There's a Republican governor, a heavily Republican state Senate. Even if you were to win the majority in the state House, you're still going to have to work with them. How can you convince Governor Brian Kemp and senior Republican legislators that expanding Medicaid is necessary right now?
Well, that's a good question. It seems, I hate to say this, we're working with Brian Kemp, well, Governor Brian Kemp at this time. It was hard to convince him, like you said, well, it was hard to convince him reopening the state at that point. That he did was one of the worst decisions he could have made at this point. So it's hard to I see that it would be hard to work with Brian Kemp, but I feel we would have to convince Brian Kemp, listen, we have to work together to make these decisions help work for our district. You know, our districts, our people, they elect you, they elect me. We have to make sure that they are number one, they're key. So we would have to go and speak with him as well as his administration to let them know, hey, if it's not for our citizens are not priority, then, I mean, why are we here? Why are we here? I mean, because it seems as if you're going to make the decisions without the citizens' best interest. You're going to make them without making sure that the citizens are number one and important in this district. So.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. I want to talk about the upcoming budgets. The Georgia Budget and Policy Institute, who helped us craft some of these questions, is forecasting a likely shortfall of $4 billion over the next 12 to 18 months. The governor is calling for 14% across the board budget cuts. You know, that is real service cuts to Savannians here. This is already after a 6% cut last year during the current fiscal year. You know, Georgia's obviously got to cut places. Where should Georgia cut services, and where should we increase revenues to cover the gaps? Well,
I feel like capital improvement projects should be cut first in our economy, because it's not a direct effect to Georgia. Meaning these projects, such as the arena project here in Savannah, so on and so forth, are not really that important at this point. Well, if we were to raise some portion, I feel like alcohol and tobacco would be, we should increase the revenue, well, increase the taxes for alcohol and tobacco here in the district, well, in the state of Georgia. So.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. The Assembly passed and the voters voted on a constitutional amendment that bans the state from raising income taxes beyond 6%. Currently, it's at 5.75, supposed to go down actually another quarter point, depending on what the legislature does this session. Is it fair for a taxpayer who makes $10 million a year to pay the same 5.75% that a hospitality worker pays, on $25,000 a year in income here in Savannah?
Well, I feel I have no issue with this model at this point, simply because if this, if it serves me, if a person making that amount, they will be taxed at a flat rate, of course. So they would be taxed on whatever they make at that point. So I feel like, I have no issue at this point.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. National surveys are suggesting a 25 to 50% reduction in sales activity has already occurred in the second quarter across most major sectors. Key employers in our state, like Delta Airlines and Gulfstream Aerospace, have already announced layoffs. Given that the state budget is so heavily dependent on sales tax revenue and these sales activities are dropping, how can the legislature maintain services without raising taxes? Given that you can't raise them, where else are you going to raise the taxes? And how do you balance that while not disincentivizing job creation?
Well, that one is pretty hard, but I mean, if these numbers are, if certain numbers are correct, then there's a clear correlation between poverty and the amount of money returned that should be returned to the Chatham County area. So when it comes to coming up with a way to, what was the second portion of that question? How can we,
how do we not overtax to disincentivize job creation? I think we're going to have to come up with some revenue, right? But how do you do that without disincentivizing job creation coming out of the worst economic downturn?
Oh, that's a hard one. And so I mean, it's hard to not disincentivize job creations. You have to make sure that our citizens are number one, of course. And we have to make sure that jobs are there, of course. But I know for sure that poverty in this society right now and the amount of money, it should be returned to Chatham County. So I'm not 100% certain at this point of where a way that we can go, because that's right off the top of my head. I'd like to give you a great answer on that one, but I'd like to work with some of my constituents, some of my experts, to kind of see if there's a way that we can kind of just work on that to make sure that it is pertinent for our citizens here in this district.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. One of the biggest economic generators here in the greater Savannah area, as you know, Matthew, is the Port of Savannah, the Georgia Ports Authority. GPA has said that they plan on doubling its size and capacity over the next 7 to 8 years. Despite the vast success of the port over the last 2 decades, there's no direct payments to Chatham County or any of the municipalities directly affected by that growth. Given the impacts of the port on our community with congestion, damage to roads, and pollution, should the delegation be negotiating with the governor for permanent revenue from GPA to the local municipalities and the county directly impacted by the growth of the GPA?
Absolutely. Our port is the third largest port in the world, with our port moving over 200,000 containers last year. I feel like our society, the city of Savannah, Garden City, different areas, they were all impacted. We're all impacted. And the state is not receiving much revenue at all. They're not receiving much revenue at all. And so I feel like if we were to impose a tax on each container that comes through that port, I feel like we would be able to kind of generate more money that would actually help with roads, helping in case of any, potholes or anything. It would not have to come out directly out of the state's budget. It would come out of funds that would come from those, from that revenue that we receive from each container. So I feel like if we were to impose a tax that on those containers, on each container that comes in, what I'm saying is make the person sending the container pay a $50, pay a certain rate or a certain dollar amount to have that container come through. Those funds go to the actual state for them coming through. And what will happen is it would actually trickle down for Georgia Ports Authority. So.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to ask you a question about a bond project of the state government in our district. I really appreciated your straightforward answer about the city project of the arena. Better Savannah has opposed the arena for several years now, since our inception, for a variety of reasons, but especially now in the COVID pandemic. I want to ask you, Matthew, should the state of Georgia move forward with the $210 million Hutchinson Island Trade Center expansion? Is this the wisest use of resources given what you know now about this COVID pandemic?
Well, I don't know. I'm not for certain. I'm not 100% certain on the whole project itself. If I had more information on the project directly, I would be able to give you a straightforward answer. But at this point, I don't know. I'm not 100% certain on the entire $210 million project of Hutchinson Island Trade Center.
Gotcha. Thank you. Appreciate that. I want to talk about the safety net. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But that is a project that I would like to look into and get back with you if possible.
Yeah. Let me ask you another question. How are you going to do your research? I think we all, we can't expect perfection. We got to expect that legislators are never going to be able to know everything. How are you going to do your research about issues? Do you know of a state Georgia should be modeling? Are there things in other states you know about that we should be doing? Tell us about what you're going to do to research the issues.
I'm not 100% sure. Uh-oh, what happened?
I'm still here. You there?
It came up stating that my internet connection was kind of sucky. I'm sorry.
You're good. You're good.
I'm not 100% certain on what others are doing in other states at this point. I do have friends in South Carolina, and we do converse on different things. But I feel like our state needs to work. I feel like our state needs to work with other states, of course, which I call an interstate relationship. I feel like we should work with other states to make sure that they are, that we are all kind of working together. Of course, the Black Caucus and different organizations as such, they all kind of work together where you're able to find out what's going on in other states. There are so many other resources out there that I would actually use to get information and learn information to assist us with state projects and different things of that nature.
Thank you. And thank you for that answer. I want to talk a little bit about education next. It's the education and healthcare are the two largest expenditures, but education is usually the single largest. Teachers in this state were promised a $5,000 raise per year by this governor 2 years ago. The legislatures met them halfway. Do you think we should move forward with that teacher raise, even though the budgets are going to be very hard to balance right now? Do you think teachers should be paid more in general?
I think teachers should be paid more in general, and that's something that I would like to continue. I understand that they did receive the raise, but with the pandemic going on, it's hard to give someone a raise when it's hard to pay them, period, at this point. And so the state cannot afford to pay them a raise in the middle of a pandemic. But after the pandemic is over, I absolutely feel like we should make sure that our teachers receive the raise that they were promised.
Absolutely. Thank you for that answer. What do you think local school boards should be preparing for next year's school year? I think there's a lot of uncertainty. Do you think they're beefing up their technology? Should we be looking for grants to pay for technology platforms for low-income kids at home that maybe can't afford? What do you think local school boards should be preparing for next year?
I really and truly, school boards are going to be in a drought next year. The state cut the budget by $35 million. I was reading in an article, and that's a lot of money. So we have to be prepared for those budget cuts that are going to take place next year. Distance learning is a big program that I feel the state needs to invest in, because we don't know what could happen in the years to come, or, what could happen. You don't know what could happen tomorrow. You never know what could happen. So I feel like the state should beef up its distance learning programs. And I think that teachers will have to, for next year, they would have to kind of see where it goes. There's going to be a lot of programs that will probably get cut. And so with those programs cut, they're going to have to do, as my mom would say, make lemonade out of lemons, sour lemons. So I feel like teachers are going to have to get ready for that.
Great. Thank you for that answer. Next question. The last Republican governor attempted a statewide takeover of schools, known as Opportunity School District. Your potential predecessor was one of a dozen Democrats to support the bill. If the state is going to single out failing schools, school by school, district by district, shouldn't they be offering additional funding to help fix the broken schools rather than taking them over with the likely intent of shutting them down?
Yes. I feel if we close down the schools, that would mean that we would have to push the school students to other schools, which would actually make the classes larger, not allowing teachers to work directly with those students. So if we push those students to another school, it would actually make the teachers' workload so much, it would make it more stressful. And so I feel instead of, really closing those schools down, kind of working with the schools to bring in better teachers for those students. And so that's something that I think that we can kind of work on.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, I think one of the largest predetermining factors for child success is the socioeconomic background of which the child is coming to the table at. I just want to talk briefly here about the poverty, in Chatham County and the city of Savannah specifically, and the safety net that the state of Georgia. In Chatham County has a 17.3% poverty rate, whereas the nationwide average is 13.5%. Given the effects of the coronavirus, I think we can expect that these numbers might rise. Mm-hmm. What are you prepared to do? Specifically, I want to talk about two policies. The first one is the temporary assistance for needy families money, which is a block grant from the federal government. Georgia has immense flexibility to determine eligibility for what are called non-recurring short-term payments. I think currently you have to be below 100% of the poverty line, which a family of four is, like $26,000, $25,000. Not a lot of money here in Savannah, as you know. Are you willing to extend some of these safety net programs because of this crisis, like the temporary assistance for needy families?
Absolutely. I feel like this system, this TANF, or the name of it's TANF, we're going to have to push it out for those. Right. We're going to have to push it. We're going to have to make sure that it's available for those families that are less fortunate. With the crisis going on today, those families are really hit hard at this point. And so we have to make sure that they have everything that they need. We have to make sure that they are not lacking. There are so many people who are lacking, and a lot of them are our family members. So we have to make sure that they have everything that they need, just as well as the rich. The rich have everything they need. So I think that families especially that's making $26,000, we have to make sure that they get all the assistance they possibly can get. Children should not go without at all. And I am a stickler. I love children, and I think that children need everything in today's economy.
Thank you. Consequentially, workers are facing an unprecedented crisis. Some 36.5 million Americans are out of work in the last 8 weeks. I'm sure you have heard countless stories around the district. I guess maybe not in person these days, but via phone and message of just telling you that they're not working and you're trying to get their unemployment benefits. Currently, we are not filling the unemployment benefits at a rapid enough rate compared to the requests that are being made. But there are also some warnings, particularly from another candidate in your race. Max Sims mentioned that, those systems could be bankrupt within a matter of months if they're fully paid out. What needs to be done to reform the unemployment system? I realize that there are some federal things at play here with that as well, but are you willing to extend unemployment benefits during this crisis, even if it means cutting services or cutting some spending elsewhere?
Well, I mean, if we don't have the funds at this point, I mean, we're going to exhaust everything. If we're going to exhaust all of our funds, where can we cut funds at this point? Everything at this, we don't have any funds anywhere else at this. So we have to we're trying to make up and pull money from other sources. And what will happen is if you pull money from another source, that source will then lack. So we're going to continue to pull funds until we're out of funds everywhere. So I feel like, yes, the government can help up to a certain point. I'd like for everyone to go back to work, but I feel like we can kind of do some tax breaks to help these folks out. We're going to have to, I know everybody has to pay tax. Some people have to pay taxes and all this stuff, but maybe doing some sort of a break on taxes in employment while they're employed or anything of that nature. We're going to have to probably do some breaks in other places, but I don't feel as if giving unemployment for a while, like you said, like Maxim said, we would then run out of funds, and I don't want that to happen,
Thank you. Thank you for the answer. I want to ask you about SPLOST. SPLOST is a special purpose local option sales tax. A lot of talk around the legislature has been about updating SPLOST laws, especially in response to the ongoing crises. SPLOST is probably the single largest bank set of funds for most counties and municipalities in terms of reserves. Do you support legislative changes or constitutional amendments to update SPLOST?
Absolutely. I feel like SPLOST, we should have some SPLOST reforms. SPLOST, I understand, is you can only use it for certain purposes. And so I feel like we need to reform it, especially with crisis going on as such, pandemics like what's going on with COVID-19. We need to be able to use those funds elsewhere sometimes, especially for special circumstances such as this. So if we can take the funds and use them in another capacity, especially if the funds are not being used for roads and different things of that nature, we should totally be able to use those funds elsewhere. And I feel like we should be able to do some SPLOST reforms. But I am absolutely for it, 100%.
Thank you. Matthew, by some economic estimates, Chatham County, along with about a dozen other counties in Georgia, are what are known as net producers to the state budget. This means that upwards of $10 of funds from the state budget that are generated from activities here in Chatham County go towards the state budget for every dollar that we receive in benefits. Do you see this relationship as correlative to the historic poverty in Savannah and Chatham County? And if so, what are you going to do to get it lowered?
I feel like it does correlate, especially with the poverty amounts. I feel like it does relate. And that is something that I do want to work on. At the moment, I'd like to give you an answer off the top of my head, but it is something that I would have to get back with you on. I'd like to make sure that it is, that I have something that's appropriate rather than just shooting something off the top of my head.
Thank you. I've got another question here for you, Matthew. You know, the Republicans in the state of House Assembly only have a majority of just 16 seats right now, and that majority is expected to go down, or they could even lose that majority this year, depending on the outcomes in November. You've mentioned that you're willing to work across the aisle. You know, should the Democrats come very close to a majority, what types of issues do you think the Republicans are going to be willing to negotiate with you on in good faith without you just, losing your way and letting them have what they want?
Well, I believe that they would work on education bills. I believe that they would work on healthcare bills. I believe that they would work on anything that would benefit the people. The people should be the majority's interest, period. So I believe education, healthcare, business and economic development, of course, is number one, and criminal justice reform. I feel like all of those are major issues, and those are some items that I'd like to work on, and I think that they would be willing to work on those together.
Great. Last major question here. I want to ask you about the Savannah Economic Development Authority. The Savannah Economic Development Authority is a state agency that is chartered through state enabling legislation along with county and city ordinances. CEDA's objective is to attract new businesses and jobs to the area, and they do so by generously giving away tax abatements for Chatham County, the school board, and the city of Savannah. Mm-hmm. These deals are never audited to see how many jobs are created, and most importantly, what the salaries of those jobs are. Got a couple questions about CEDA, but the first one is, will you support an independent audit of CEDA's job creation and wages compared to the contract offer when they bring the company in town? Will you support audits of those deals ongoing?
Absolutely. I do. Absolutely, I do. Being a numbers man, I believe in audits to make sure that the budgets, I believe that, and we have to make sure that everything kind of fits within our plan. So you have to plan for everything. And with that being said, you have to make sure that those numbers are appropriate for the taxpayers.
Second question on CEDA. Currently, the CEDA board, the appointments to the CEDA board are done in thirds. The first third goes to the county government. The second third goes to the city of Savannah government. But the last third goes to the board of directors of CEDA itself. Would you support reforming the legislation that enables CEDA to require that last third of appointments be given on a rotating basis to the other municipalities in Chatham County?
I do, simply because it allows them to return to the municipalities.
Great. Well, look, Matthew, I want to really say thank you for stepping up and running for office this year. I know that you were not feeling well, so I really appreciate you sitting down to give us these straightforward answers. I want to give you a few minutes here to just tell voters again why they should vote for you for the House District 163 primary on June 9th. Tell them how they can get in touch with you and find you on the internets and all those good things.
Okay. Of course, my name is Matthew Swanson, and I'm running for State Representative District 163. I'm an accounting major. I enjoy numbers. I enjoy making budgets, creating budgets. I enjoy reviewing budgets. I enjoy making sure that those items benefit the citizens or anyone that's impacted. And so I am one that would make sure that everything, especially dealing with numbers or anything that's accounting wise, I would make sure that they are great for this district. So I am running, and I want you to vote for me on June 9th. You can reach me at Matthew@Swanson for GA163.com, or either you can reach me at 912-200-1514. And you can call me if you have any issues or concerns. And yeah, that's about it. Or you can find me on Facebook or any other sources of social media.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us, Matthew. I want to wish you to stay safe on the campaign trail and wish you the best of luck. We do think this race is likely going to a runoff, so we're very interested to see who's going to be in that runoff, and we'll hope to see you there. I want to make some another page notes here. Just a reminder that this is the last of our interviews for House District 163. Tomorrow afternoon in the evening, we will interview a debates format for the first commission district for Chatham County's commission. It'll be our last of the commission district debates and interviews for the Chatham County races this year. Next weekend, we will have the district attorney's primary debate at 1:30 p.m. That's going to be moderated by Dr. Maxine Bryant and local attorney Constance Cooper. At 5:30 on next Saturday, we will have the debate for the Democratic primary race for the chairman of the Chatham County Commission. The following weekend, we will have the tax commissioners debate for the primary and then an interview with Republican candidate for chairman of the county commission, former mayor of Tybee Island, Jason Bulterman. I want to thank you for tuning in this evening. We appreciate your feedback and we appreciate you spreading the word. Please share this video and all of our videos. Remember to like the page. We appreciate your time and we'll see you tomorrow evening. Thanks so much.